guys, Economics here. Some of you in the last few weeks have been asking me, some subscribers have been asking me, what is the best way of answering certain types of questions on the A591, A592 and A593 OCR GCSE Economics papers. So I'm just going to run through what the common directive words are within the exam paper, within the questions in the exam papers, and then just give you a little idea as to the way in which you might go about structuring your answer. When I've got a bit more time, I'll try and put together some examples of an answer or a few answers for each of these. So here we have listed the the 8 most common directive words which you'll find on these GCSE exam papers. Identify, calculate, compare, explain, state and explain, analyse. Then a catch-all here, we've got to what extent, or sometimes it's written as discuss, or sometimes it's written as evaluate. And then finally, one which you should really take note of, those of you doing A593, that's the stimulus material paper for 2016, using examples in the case study. Whatever the question is. So let's take each of these in turn. Identify. Identify usually refers to a set of data which you will be given, and all you'll be asked to do is simply to identify, it'll usually be to do with economic growth or inflation or something like that, and all you'll have to do is simply pick out the highest and lowest values or something like that. Fairly straightforward. And these questions are going really in order of tariff, so as we move through them, the number of marks awarded for them is steadily getting greater and greater. So these ones here, these questions, these low tariff marks, low tariff questions beginning with identify, you're only talking 2 marks really for a question like that. Calculate. You will often be asked to calculate something, and therefore you need to know, I would say, a few things. Number one, make sure that you're able to work out a simple percentage. It's amazing the number of people, even in the 6th form, can't calculate a simple percentage. And the other thing is, make sure you bring a calculator to the exam. Thirdly, compare. Again, usually you'll be asked to compare values. When you're comparing data, make sure you get things, obvious things in, but you use terms like higher, lower, highest and lowest, and try to look over the trend of the data. So don't just, do not go in year 1 it was this, and then in year 2 it was this, and in year 3 it was this. Don't give a year by year, blow by blow account. That's not what you're asked to do. It's compare usually over the time period, pointing out such and such was higher, or such and such was lower. Directive word 4, explain. Explain the meaning of the term GDP, explain the meaning of the term GDP per capita, explain what's meant by inflation, explain how inflation is measured. All of these things usually carry in about 4 marks, and again it's something that you really either know because you've learnt it and committed to memory, or you don't know it. State and explain. Now we're getting into the high tariff marks. This would usually be a total of 6, but it'll be broken down into 1 plus 2 and 1 plus 2. So you get the 1 mark for the state, and then you get the 2 marks for the explain. Whatever the question may be. State and explain 2 causes of cost push inflation. So you might say, for example, an increase in the national minimum wage. That would be your state part of it, and then your explain, you'll go on to explain why and how that would lead to cost push inflation. Analyse. Again, usually a 6-mark question. Now I would say, generally speaking, certainly for 6 and 7, I would say that diagrams, economics without diagrams is like the burger without the relish in that respect. So I think diagrams really for directive words 6 and 7 are really important. They go a long way to helping not only to support your answer, but it makes you think through the analysis. And you then, as you think through it, you write it onto the script, and it's a win-win situation in that respect, ladies and gentlemen. So analyse the key causes of an increase in, let's say, economic growth, or an increase in the budget deficit, whatever it may be. Try and always include a diagram. If it's analyse, all you do have to do is simply explain, okay, so if it's analyse, analyse the impact of a reduction in the base rate of interest on the UK economy. So I'm thinking here immediately, so I'm thinking diagram, I'm thinking long run aggregate supply curve, LRAS, I'm thinking AD shifting to the right, like so, AD1 to AD2, and then I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I've drawn my diagram, now I'm going to explain to the examiner why AD shifts to the right, and then what the impact is on, as you know we've referred to before, the real economy. So always thinking about economic growth, inflation, unemployment, trade balance. Always have these things in your mind. What is the impact on those key macro objectives? Point number 7. Again, this will be your 8-mark question. To what extent? Discuss, evaluate. They're all generally meaning the same thing. They want a two-sided discussion, and then they want an overall judgment at the end. So you really ought to, when the examiners are marking the scripts, they're looking out for you to sort of signpost where you've put things. So if you start off with on the one hand, the examiner knows, oh great, this candidate really knows how to structure an answer, so they're going to have, let's say, all the advantages coming after on the one hand. So go through that and talk about all the advantages. Maybe a diagram thrown in to support it. Then, on the other hand, examiner knows again, signpost, right, this candidate really know what they're on about, now they're going to do all the disadvantages, and you need to go through yours and talk about all the disadvantages. And then, if you conclude, so on balance, this is sort of an examiner's dream, they then know, okay, this candidate, they're going to conclude, and evidence, on balance, evidence would suggest that. Don't say on balance in my opinion, don't say that please. On balance, evidence would suggest that. And this is where, if you do read around the subjects and you're reading the papers, The Economist, and watching the news and so on, if you can give some really good up-to-date examples of ways in which you think something can enhance your answer and bring you to a very reasoned conclusion, stick it in at this point. And then lastly, I refer to the A593 paper, the stimulus material paper at the end. Read the question. Often it says, especially in the last question, using examples in the case study. So there's no point rambling on with a tremendous answer about growth or inflation or trade or whatever it may be without referring. If you're asked to, you must do it. You must refer to the data. Okay, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Back again another time. Bye for now.